Today I'm going to show you how to trim a foot on a bowl. And the first most important thing is your bowl needs to be leather hard. What does that mean? It means it is still dark in color, but it is stiff. I can't flex it. Like if I take the rim and I try to move it, it doesn't move. That's how you want your bowl to be before you trim it. The tools that you need are a small trimming tool and a bigger trimming tool and a needle tool. And a ruler is helpful to make sure that you get your foot in the right proportion. And you also need 3 pieces of kind of stiff clay, like not really soft, not too hard. When you push it, it should crack just a little to hold your bowl in place. The objective is to make a foot in the bottom of your bowl, and this bowl is by Richard Bresnahan, so he's a master potter at St. John's University. And so this is called the foot, and you also want this inner foot ring. So that's your goal. And notice the foot in the proportion to the rim is quite small. If I were to take a ruler and measure, the rim of my bowl is 5.5 inches. My foot is only 2 inches, so less than half of the rim. So the first thing I want to do is look at my bowl, look at the inside shape compared to the outside shape. Feel, because usually as it gets near the base, it thickens. So I'm going to make a little fingernail mark where it starts to thicken, which is about here. And that's where I'm going to start trimming. The other really important measurement, probably even more important, is how thick the bottom of your piece is. What I like to do is flip my bowl over and take my needle tool and gently poke it down. My index finger is inside the bowl, so I can feel just the tip of that needle when it starts to penetrate. So I just go slowly and carefully. I don't want to poke myself until I feel the tip of the needle, and then I take a measurement, and my foot is 5/8 of an inch. So that's good news. I can have my foot be about 3/8 of an inch and my inner foot ring be 3/8 of an inch down, which is a really nice sized foot. In order to get an A, you need a foot that's at least 1/4 of an inch. So that's why I tell you to make your bowls at least 1/2 inch or slightly more. Like mine is 5/8 of an inch. So now the next important thing I have to do is to get it centered. So first I'm just using my rings on my wheel head and I'm just eyeballing it. So I'm just pushing. I'll see if I can lift this camera. I'm just looking down over the bowl using the rings. Now I'm going to take my needle tool and I'm going to check. And often your bowl is a little off center, so you have to make some small adjustments. I'm going to hold my needle tool in 2 hands. I'm going to kick my wheel and I'm going to lock my elbows in and I'm going to gently scratch and see if you can see it's scratching on one side, not the other. So I have to make a small adjustment. So I stop the wheel, I find the scratch, and my scratch, it starts right here. I'm going to mark it on the bottom. It ends right here. So I need to move that scratch towards the center of the wheel. So I'm drawing a little arrow, and I'm going to move that bowl just a millimeter at a time, so like 1/16 of an inch. I'm just going to move it a teeny weeny bit because it wasn't very off center. And now I'm going to test it again. And what I want is my needle to scratch evenly all the way around, which it is. Excellent. So that's what I want. Now I'm going to anchor it down. So I carefully centered my bowl. So I'm going to push down with one hand firmly so I don't bump it. And then with the other hand, I'm going to put my 3 little chunks of pretty stiff clay. You don't want to use soft clay. It sometimes sticks to the bowl. And I'm going to evenly space out my 3 pieces of clay so that it's secure. And notice I'm pushing pretty hard into the metal wheel head so it doesn't slip. Some potters put a little bit of water on their little hot dog of clay. Some potters call it a caterpillar, so that it sticks to the metal. You don't want your piece to flop around. So my piece is secured in 3 places evenly, and now I start to trim. And this is the part that I really like trimming. I think it's quite fun. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my big tool. I like to start out with this tool, and I'm going to get quite a bit of speed, and I'm going to start shaving off ribbons of clay. So I'm pushing. I notice I have 2 hands on the potter's tool, and my elbows are locked in. I don't know if you can see that, and I'm trimming off ribbons of clay. So step 1 is to set the outside edge of my foot. And the outside edge of my foot is this edge. And I forgot to take a measurement of how wide my bowl was, so I'm going to have to eyeball it, which is normally what I do anyway. Now, in general, you want your foot to be less than half of the width of your rim. That's just kind of a general aesthetic rule. Now, art rules are they're not like set in stone, so you can vary from that. You'll find bowls that have wider feet, maybe narrower, but it's kind of just a good general principle. Now I'm taking some clay off the side here too, because my goal is to make the outside edge of my foot match the inside shape of my bowl. So now I'm going to keep shaving. I want my foot to be a little bit narrower, so I'm going to come in some more. And now I'm going to just look. So in order to look, though, I got to get my head down to eye level and just look at the proportions. That looks pretty good. I think it's about less than half. So that's quite pleasing. So I'm going to go with that. And now I'm going to mark where my inner foot ring is going to start. A needle tool is good for this. I'm going to make my foot ring about 1/4 of an inch thick. So I'm just holding my needle in one spot to make a mark. And this is going to end up to be my foot. Now I'm going to take my tool, and I often like to use my smaller tool for this. And I'm going to start on the inside, and I'm going to start shaving off ribbons of clay. So this takes a little bit of time. You want to trim off all the excess clay on your pieces. A sign of a well-made pot is it's even throughout. So my goal is to make all my bowls about 1/4 an inch thick. So I want my foot to be about 1/4 of an inch thick. So you see how I'm just shaving off these ribbons of clay. Now I would have to say that a lot of girls make the mistake of carving right through the bottom of their bowl. So don't get carried away with the inner foot ring. If you need to stop and take a measurement, you should. Another thing you can do is you can tap it and listen to the sound. And if it's a lower sound, some more clay can come off. So if you have a good ear, you can hear if it's higher or lower. If it's low, it means it's a bit thick. And that's looking pretty good. I'm feeling like it's about deep enough. Remember, my bottom was 5/8 of an inch thick, so I can go a little deeper. And if I'm not sure, you can stop the wheel and you can use your ruler and you can take a measurement. So you can lay this ruler across the top of your piece, and you can take your needle and you can literally, take a little measurement. And I can say, yeah, that's about right. I think I can go down a little bit more. I know I need to take some more clay off here, though, and almost always on bowls, you need to take clay off here because you need that weight, actually, to support your bowl when you're making it. You need to have your bowls a little bit thick on the bottom so they don't flop. And that thickness supports your bowl, but then you trim it off in this stage. So you see how I'm just shaving off ribbons of clay. If you let your bowl get too dry, you won't shave off ribbons. And your goal is to do it when it's leather hard, and these ribbons of clay, they just peel off. They should look about like that. So I'm going to keep shaving it off here, because remember it was a little bit thicker there. And now I think maybe I'm done. And so I'm going to just smooth it. I like to just plain use my fingers, but I'm going to get rid of any sharp edges, brush away the little crumbs. I'm going to seal up my little needle hole that I created. And I'm just going to, oh, I can tell right now my foot's not tall enough. I just put my head to the side to get a profile of my pot, and I can see that it's not tall enough right now. So I got to, remember mine was a little more than ½ inch thick. So therefore, my foot should be about 3/8 of an inch tall. So I need to make it a little bit taller. That's better. I still should take a little more off. Your foot can be vertical, or it can, mine is kind of, I don't know if you can see it on this movie, but it's kind of angling outward a little, and that's okay too. You want to have a nice distinct foot ring. It makes a nice delineation where you put the glaze, and also having a foot on a bowl just sets it up nicely, and it kind of lifts it up and makes it look more graceful. All right, so now I think my foot's tall enough, and I think I've done enough trimming. So I'm going to do a little bit of burnishing. Just, you can use a rib, you can use your fingers. Back of the fingernail works kind of nicely. I'm just kind of smoothing or compressing out those little scratches. The grog, when you trim, sometimes the grog leaves little scratch marks, but you can easily get rid of those with a just pressure, just compression. Right now I'm going to show you a trick that I really like. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a mark. And I'm going to mark a little notch in one of my little hot dogs of clay. So I'm going to put a little scratch, and then I'm going to put a slight scratch into my bowl. Now I'm going to remove just one of my 3 pieces of clay, just one. I'm going to set it aside, and then I'm going to slide my bowl out. Do not remove more than 1 piece of clay, or you won't be able to do this trick. I'm going to slide it out, and I'm going to lift it up, and I'm going to just check I'm going to feel, oh wow, it feels very even. And then I'm going to feel the base. Yep, I did it. I'm feeling with 2 hands, one hand on the inside, one on the outside, and I'm feeling the thickness, and I'm like, I think I did a good job. It feels quite even all the way. So I'm done. I can sign my name. Don't forget to smooth out your little, scratch mark. Now, if I still needed to trim, which you probably will, because most beginners, it takes time to learn how to trim. You're going to put it back. You're going to find that little scratch. You're going to line it up with your scratch. So here's my scratch. I'm going to line it up with the scratch in my little chunk of clay that's anchoring. I'm going to carefully line it up. I'm going to push it back into place so I'm pushing against this piece that I didn't remove. Now I'm going to take my other piece that I removed, and I'm going to reattach it so that my bowl doesn't fly. And now I am able to do a little more trimming if I need it. Just trim off a little more, and then do the same procedure. Make your little, take it off, check it, and just make sure that you always keep that little scratch mark in the same place, and you never remove this piece of clay, because that's your indicator of, and this will save you a lot of time. You don't have to recenter your bowl. And then remember, you leave 2 pieces of clay on the wheel. You just remove 1, and then you slide your bowl out in that direction to check. When you're happy with your bowl, you've burnished it, then you sign your name, and assess it, and you put it in the kiln room. Thank you.